Hey, everybody, off the Mike Sports Network here. Cavs thoughts here. Let's preview. The schedule is at the time of this recording of this video has not been released, but the Cleveland Cavaliers are facing the Indiana Pacers in the second round. This was the expected matchup. Indiana was favored over Milwaukee. I didn't expect it to go 5 games, but Damian Lillard gets hurt. And then, obviously the 40-second collapse that they had, blowing a 7-point lead. Milwaukee loses, Indiana wins. Indiana went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. I got to give them that. Largely the same team is back. Benedict Mathurin, who I have a lot of respect for, great player at Arizona. He's back in the fold. So this team is battle-tested and experienced. They're deep. What's going to be really interesting here is, the Cavs, the season series, and a lot of people are going to look at this and create a narrative that the Pacers are going to have a chance to potentially win and go back to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, am I a little bit worried as a Cavs fan? Yes. Tyrese Halliburton is a gamer. They've got some talented dudes who have some experience. Rick Carlisle has won an NBA championship, of course. But if you're going to try and use, the Pacers won the season series over the Cavs 3-1. Okay. First of all, you are not using full context. They played them twice in January. They played them twice in April. January, this was where the Cavs were kind of in a little bit of a lull after their hot start to the season. They lost by 15 at home to the Pacers. And then, a couple days later, on a back, like 2 nights later, they go to Indiana and win by 10, 127, 117. And then the 2 games in April were right at the end of the season when the Cavs literally had already locked up the 1 seed. We're not even trying to win. The Cavs lost by 2 with basically their B squad playing. And then they went to overtime when nobody was playing. There is no way that if you're going to use the season series as any sort of referendum on how to pick this series between the Cavs and the Pacers, clearly you just don't you're just leaving out context and you're trying to create a narrative that this is possible. I will say this. Indiana does scare me a little bit from a matchups perspective because they've got guards that match up pretty decently. Nesmith is a good player. TJ McConnell off the bench, very much in the same vein as kind of like a Ty Jerome, an older Ty Jerome. Like, this is going to be an interesting series. I do think that the Cavs should win this in 6 games at the most. I don't think this is going to go 7. If the Cavs are on their A game, this could be a 5-game series or maybe a sweep. I don't think I'll give Indiana the respect, because here's the thing. Indiana played Boston really hard in the Eastern Conference Finals last year, and they got swept. Nobody remembers that because, hey, they got swept. But the Cavs are going to get tested here. They will, and I like that. Indiana is not this type of a chump team. And, I think there's going to be some level of motivation on Kenny Atkinson's part, saying, hey, guys, we beat this team once this year. Granted, they beat us twice when none of us were playing, but you want your piece of motivation right there? Absolutely. But I don't think Indiana is going to win this series. I don't. It would have to take a bunch of injuries and just a cataclysmic, just meltdown of epic proportions. This Cavs team, if you learned anything from what happened in that series against Miami, people are going to dismiss it because Miami was a 10 seed and nobody cares and, whatever. But if you were paying attention, the Cavs sent a message to the rest of the NBA. You're all talking about Boston and Oklahoma City and, some of the trying to, weave in Luka and LeBron and have all the NBA attention on that, even though they may get eliminated. I think they're playing Wednesday. Guys, the Cavs sent a message to the rest of the NBA. They broke a record, plus 122. They won by 37 and 55 on the road in Miami. You could just, Miami was, definitely going in there with house money. They knew they weren't going to win. But the Cavs basically broke them, and they quit. And, the Cavs could have just, packed it in. They almost won. They could have easily won by 60, 70 points. They won by 55. So, we'll see if, rest. Obviously, Darius Garland's got to get healthy. That's a big part of this, too. If he's at 100, listen, like I said, the experience and, like the size and the versatility of Indiana does concern me a little bit. But to me, this is a 6-game series at the most. The Cavs showed you that at full strength, they are as good as anybody in the NBA. Indiana beat them 3 times, but again, one of those was one of those was in the middle of a back-to-back in the middle of the low of the season. So they beat them legitimately once. But then the other 2 losses at the end of the regular season, one of which was in overtime when nobody was playing from either side. So realistically, if we're calling this what it is, they split the season series. Let's call it what it is. Because legitimately at full strength, each of them won 1 game. Nobody was playing when they played them in Indiana. That was actually a national TV game. The Cavs almost won that game, which was wild considering none of their key players even played in that game. And Jared Allen was literally just playing to get the 82 game streak. But to me, I feel good about the Cavs, but this will definitely be a test. I'm glad that it's not just going to be a walkover and they can just jump into the next round. Like, it'll be a test for them for sure. And it would have been nice, hey, if Indiana had to work a little bit more. They did have to work to make this comeback against Milwaukee to get to the next round. But this will be very interesting to watch. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.